Okay, and we are recording right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of The Enlightening Tangent. I'm your host, Gautam, aka the Seeker of Wisdom. And today we have Jeanine. Hi, Jeanine. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for joining. And yeah, so why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and who are you and what do you do, and we can take it from there.
Sure, yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm
Of
so
course. Yeah.
excited to join your podcast. And well, my name is Jeanine. I am from the Netherlands. And I have been in this, let's say, spiritual journey and doing what I do for just a little over 2 years. I've been always been very interested in the law of attraction. I was introduced to the law of attraction through actually a Hindu practitioner that was like a healer,
Right.
and that got me into law of attraction and manifested a lot of things, and then went back a lot, like
Mm.
lost a lot of things I had manifested, and then I started like to really dive into this. I think over 2 years ago, when I really started to dig into the law of attraction, and then actually it kind of you kind of have the snowball effect that got me into other spiritual practices like so-called breath work, and also to dig into religion. And then I
Right.
started to get into the masculine and feminine polarity, and eventually I did a course in cosmic sexuality, which is a topic I was always interested in. But
Right.
now the connection with, you see the connection between it all, connection with the universal laws.
Right.
And yeah, so I have my page Cosmic Love Codes. I've had it only for like 7 or 8 months, and I'm just
Mm.
kind of still exploring and learning.
Right, right, right. So what exactly is cosmic sexuality, and like what how do how does it like fit into, like the entirety of things, if you will? Like how does it benefit
Mhm.
a person? If you could just give a little bit more details about that. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. So cosmic sexuality is basically just the, how do you call it, the sexual where sexuality and spirituality meet. That is
Mm.
that is all, because a lot of people think it's tantra, but tantra is really not something sexual per se. Tantra
Right,
is
right.
is is a lot of deeper and broader practice and study actually than only cosmic sexuality. And cosmic sexuality is basically using your sexuality to connect to God or to connect to the universe in a way that really expands yourself, and
Mm.
that makes it easy for you to really deeply connect with a partner and also connect to everything in the universe. It's very hard. When I first was introduced, I was like, I really cannot, I cannot make any clear vision of what cosmic sexuality is supposed to be like, because we all know what sexuality is and what sex is.
Right.
But what do you mean when they say, oh, it's a type of sexuality that connects you to God or to the universe? Like, that is
Mm.
very abstract, but it fits into all the other practices, because when you realize that sexual energy, it's the strongest energy that there is. It's creation.
Mm.
And when
Mm.
we
Mm.
manifest, we also create. And we are very powerful creators. So cosmic sexuality is using that energy for the good of obviously expanding your soul and yourself, but also for the good of others. And yeah, so it's and also a way to really connect deeper with your partner in a way that is not able to do so when you are not into this practice. And how it has helped me,
Mm-hmm.
because I am not married, I am single. So and cosmic sexuality also teaches you, because I thought it would be about sex, right? Maybe about the jade eggs, and a lot of the practices that females are in, the yoni steaming and stuff. But it was really also about loving yourself, because you cannot
Mm.
go into the cosmic sexuality practice if you are not deeply connected with yourself. So the connection with yourself, trusting yourself, is the basis. And it also means that you may rethink who you are giving your body to as a woman, but also as a man.
Mm, mm, mm. Right, right, right. Yeah, so that's what I was wondering as well. Like, how would it like benefit like, single people? Because, just the nature of the term implies that, there might be another person involved. And
Hmm.
yeah, so how does it like
Right.
so where does someone begin if like they don't know really like where to start, with the practice or something? Like where
Yeah.
does someone generally begin? Like what do they do? Do they start with breath work or how does that happen?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very good question. To get back on your comment about, being single and doing this alone, it really can help you when you are single, either to also cleanse yourself from past partners, but also to
Mm.
prepare yourself for the next partner,
Okay, okay.
re-establishing the relationship with yourself. But also a lot of men,
Mm,
in general, also struggle with, things like, maybe they have an addiction to pornography. How do you deal with
mm,
that?
mm,
And
mm.
it's also about the semen retention, how this can benefit you as a person, especially for men, but
Right.
also for women. When you do, orgasm retention, it can really help you cleanse yourself spiritually and also your body, and then magnetize the partner that you are meant to be with. So how do you start? So we usually start the practice also alone. So either also if you're in your partnership, also then the practice starts by yourself. So the first step is to do healing work, and that can mean just if you're not familiar with meditation. A lot of meditation. I had a Cosmic Sexuality course. A lot of it was meditation, but
Mm,
also breathing, like the breath work, because your chakra points, your sexual energy, it goes up from your chakra points. And usually the way we practice sex, it's focused on the in general the area. So we think that's where we have sex, and that is all. But
mm,
there's so much to it. If you expand the sexual energy to the upper chakra, then
mhm.
you can really heal yourself and connect with your heart. So that's the first step. And as Cosmic Sexuality practitioner, we can help people to do that. To do also root healing, what it's called. So basically, you go back to the relationship you have with your biological mother and father,
Mm,
and then
mm,
it
mm,
means also forgiving them, because you were made of their sexuality together made you.
mm,
So
mm,
you
mm,
carry a lot of that in you, and it's about healing and forgiveness and also letting go, because even
mm.
though you are your parents' child, we often are still so limited by their expectations and their energy we carry within us. So it's like
Right.
becoming independent. So that's the first step. And then you go also to some cord removal from past partners. A lot of people have trauma from past partners or energy, and they're not even aware, or they are aware. And then we have root healing, cord removal practices that really can help people cleanse themselves. And yeah, that would be the first steps.
Okay, okay, okay. So, you mentioned about parents and everything. So, how much of like parents like baggage like really affects the child? Like, how much of it really affects like a kid like
Yeah.
when they are born? Like, how much does it come into play? Yeah.
I think more than we realize, because
Mm.
first of all, we are not only made of our parents, but
Mm-hmm.
our parents were made of their parents, and so forth and so forth.
Right, right,
If,
right.
if you think about, when you sleep with someone, the energy of the other person stays within the woman for, I think, 7 years, and for
Wow.
guys, 28 days only.
Oh,
So that
okay.
yeah, so that means that you carry a lot of energy, not only like you're in your genetics, but also from your parents' past partners, all that goes within you. So there's a lot of, and also there's also the former life. So you carry a lot of stuff with you, from your parents, that they carry with them, and all that is built up. So and often we don't realize it, or we do, but we accept it as like a fact. So we say, oh, that's
Right.
just the way I am because of my parents. But we are, in the end of the day, we are all independent beings and, children of the cosmos. So we are always able, if we want to, and if we're willing and ready to, I don't want to say disconnect from your parents, because that's not even necessary unless you
Hmm.
want to, but
Hmm.
just be a little bit more independent and make sure that we follow our own independent path.
Right, right. So you mentioned like carrying someone's energy with you. Like what does it actually mean? Like on a day-to-day basis, like how does that look like if I'm carrying someone's energy with me?
It can be a lot of different things. Like, I see a lot of posts on Instagram as well, like,
Mm-hmm.
being really like dramatic about it. Like, it doesn't mean that, oh, now you sleep with someone that's depressed. Oh, now you're going to be depressed, and that's
Right,
just
right, right.
that's just gonna happen. It doesn't work that way. Like, you also
Mm,
decide, right? You're never a victim of your of what you have done. So, but it can mean that, especially for women, I want to, because for men, I'm not saying that it's not applicable to men, but men are the givers and
mm-hmm.
women are the receivers, right?
Mm,
Also very clear in the sexual act.
mm,
And women get the energy, they receive it in their womb, and that is a place that is, just it can maintain there for a long time, as I said. So if you are a woman and you, for example, you sleep with people that don't really love you, I think that's the main danger, and
right.
that only sleep with you for their own gain, so for their pleasure. I will say for taking, not for giving. Then your energy can be drained. A lot of women, maybe you recognize this, they sleep with a man and then they feel so depressed afterwards. Like, that's
Right,
also why
right,
a lot
right.
of women, they cry after sex, or they, for example, when they don't hear from the guy the next days, they sleep with someone that they're not attached to, and the guy just goes on with his life, but the
Mm,
woman is just, can be very depressed. And it can also have to do with that. It can also mean, for example, if you sleep with someone that has slept with a lot of women, for example, then you
mm,
carry that energy. We see this a lot also in when there's a situation of cheating, and then the man
mm,
goes from his wife to the mistress, and all the energy gets exchanged. I will say, it's up to you to see how much it affects you.
mm-hmm.
But if you have any like unexplainable weird things going on, like negative thoughts, just how do you call it, tiredness,
Mm, mm,
any
mm.
physical or mental complaints, that can be a result of that. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So it's always good. There are a lot of ways to cleanse yourself. So it's not
Mhm,
like, oh,
mhm,
now
mhm.
you're just doomed. That's not the case. It can always be cleansed and removed. And we also
Right,
see it
right.
in guys, by the way, because guys, they often release their semen, which is essentially their life force.
Mm,
And
mm,
some
mm.
give them too many women, right? And it goes on and on and on. And a lot of men suffer from just being tired, just their body being so tired, and they want to go to the gym and do all this stuff, and they want to eat healthy, and they don't see that their sexual practices, they're giving, their semen to a lot of different women. It just drains them of their life energy.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
So
so
I think
that's,
earlier you sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
no, I just wanted to add, like, I also hear people saying things like, oh, I slept with this woman and she performed some black magic, and now I'm like cursed. All that sounds a little dramatic, but that is also possible. But it's not like, I don't believe personally in, you sleep with someone and now you have demons here because that person was cursed or something. I don't
Right.
believe in that. It's not impossible, it is possible, but it's
Mhm.
always reversible.
Right, 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 right. So like what are the ways that someone can, like cleanse themselves? Like is it the meditations you explained the breath work, or is there more to it?
Yeah, there are several things you can do. There are a lot of things you can do. You can do the cord removal, which is also
Mm.
known as cord cutting.
Right, right.
In cosmic sexuality, we tend to do the cord removal to make sure that everything that there's nothing that can regrow. That is just the practice as I was
So
as I
what
was
does that
taught.
actually mean? Sorry, what does that actually mean? Like, do you visualize the cord being cut between you and your person? Is that it, or is there more to it? Like,
Yeah, it's that's basically what it is. So you visualize the person in front of
mm,
you, like
mm, mm,
you
mm.
go into your meditation, like we your regular meditation, and there is some kind of cosmic breathing, which is basically in the nose and out through the mouth, as
Mm.
slowly, and then you get into this meditative state, and then you
Right.
can visualize this person in front of you. And if there's anything, any ex that comes to your mind, that
Mm.
makes you feel like any sort of toxicity at all, any just feeling of it's just not comfortable when I think of this person, then that's the person you should do it from. You can visualize this person, and then also thank them for what they have taught you,
Right.
and
Right.
also declare to the universe and to this person that you're no longer going to be attached to this person,
Mm.
etc. And then you're going to remove the cord. You have to sense where it is. It can be in different places in your body. For example, it can
Ah.
be in your tummy, or it can be in your navel, or maybe even in your throat. It can be in the
Mm,
back,
mm, mm,
but that's
mm.
something you can sense, and then you can remove it, and then you have to like heal this place with some kind of visualizations. And then it's important to make sure that you also make a promise to yourself that you're not going to reconnect with this person again, because that would be then you have to do it all over again. So that's a process.
Right. 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 Yeah, so I was just wondering about that because like because I always imagine like a cord just running from one person's belly or something to another. So it's interesting you
Yeah,
said like the cords can be like in different places. Like that was something new for me, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also depending on the relationship you have with this person. Like some people suffer from, they have been dealing with partners that were so controlling. Or, when you feel like many people say like, oh, I have a connection to this person, like I like him or her so much, but they're so toxic. But it's like they possess me, right? So when they
Mm,
call, I must answer, I must see them, and they're just in control of them. And that can be sometimes, I had it myself, someone that had a cord, around my throat or in the
mm.
heart area, or sometimes you have two or three ones.
Right,
So
right, right.
right, that's this, it's just energetics. And it's not necessary to do this practice to make sure you
Mm-hmm.
cut ties with this person. It's just a tool, right? So I think it's very,
Mm.
very powerful, because it also makes it so clear and vocal to the universe that you are now disconnecting for this person, and it's really helpful to do so.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because remember like I think when we were talking like once I told you about psychosymbology and everything,
Mm-hmm.
about how like you can just visualize certain things like symbolic things, and yet your mind is able to comprehend exactly what you're saying.
Right.
So with some of my clients I normally tell them like like imagine yourself being in front of the sun and like absorbing the rays of it, that implies you are healing, for
Exactly.
example. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting to see like how those types of practices is it's very effective, because we think that because it's symbolic, it might your mind might not be able to comprehend exactly what you're saying, but your mind
Yeah.
actually understands exactly what you're saying. And
It's
so
true.
yeah, so it's really interesting to see how that kind of practice is being put into like removing any baggage with your ex. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
It's true, and it's not only the mind, because it is important that you also really feel into it, because it's
Mm.
it's also on a subconscious level, right? So, for example, I had that my friend told me once about another practice that was about doing a visualization about like going to a person's house, ringing the door, and telling them like, I
Mm.
need a piece of my heart back. She told me that that's how you like detach the
Oh.
self from. I need a piece of my heart back. You have it, please. I need it back. Please give it to me. And this person goes around and says, oh yeah, sure, here it is. Or and whatever, and
Right.
then you take it back and you go home, right? And it sounded so silly, but I did it, and it's like
Right.
it's amazing because you see this person, they get animated in the visualization, and they do it their way, and they do things like they might say like, oh, I have it in my pocket, or they might say like, oh, I have to search it there and there, but they do stuff that you're like, oh, that's so them, so it gets so animated in your subconscious. So, and yeah, it's amazing, but it makes it very, very powerful.
That's nice. I really love that idea actually. Like, like
Yeah,
going, to their house and that kind of scene. I think that's really, really powerful.
yeah,
So yeah, I definitely I'll definitely share it with people for sure. Like I'll definitely show them
yeah,
this clip.
it's
Yeah,
a
thanks
good
for sharing
one.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like it when like there's a scenario and then it's like you kind of create a play in your mind, right? Like you have a set,
Hmm.
you have characters, and then you do these types of things. And so how often does a person have to do this for this to really ingrain in their mind? Do they just have to do it like once, or do they have to do it like
Yeah.
multiple times? Yeah.
Ideally, you do that once. Like these are very powerful practices, and
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
thing is, you must be ready. So I have done some practices several times with the same person, but that means that you weren't ready. So because if you do something powerful like this, or like you're not going to do it every week, and
Mm,
it
mm,
also
mm,
it takes a lot of energy. So these things you do once, but there
mm-hmm,
are other things, like for example, let's say you're a woman, and let's say you are a sex worker, you're a prostitute, right?
mm, mm, mm,
And
mm,
obviously you're going to have sex with a lot of men, and
mm.
then you just want to quit. And then you can do, for example, obviously not going to cut cards with all your 3,000 clients, and that's also not necessary, but you
Right,
can then
right, right.
also, like, to generally cleanse yourself, you can do energy healing baths, with salt and with fruits and with herbs, and with essential oils. And you can do, the yoni steaming. That would be very, very good for general cleansing of your sexual energy, especially
Right.
for women, with the womb work and the yoni work. And for men, like, the cleansing showers or bath would be sufficient. And for men, it's very useful to practice semen retention,
Mm, mm,
and to
mm.
to practice with retaining your semen, and that would be enough also to cleanse yourself.
Right, right. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Like, so, I think it's becoming in a world like that, it's so like sexualized often, and
Mhm.
and men especially, like I think Jordan Peterson, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like he was talking about this, and this kind of like put things into perspective for me. He says that the a 12-year-old has more access to like naked women than
Yeah.
a king did like 100 years ago, like
Right.
throughout his entire lifetime. So a kid can see more naked women in like the next 5 minutes, than a king did throughout his entire life, maybe like 100 or 200 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
And that really put things into perspective, like how easy it is for men to really lose their semen these days. So how does
Yeah.
one navigate that, like in your experience, like in your practices, like how would you advise someone to navigate that space? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually saw that clip as well, and it's like
Right.
it's really it sounds so logical, but it's just so shocking.
It is. It is.
And
It is.
then we wonder why men and women are disconnected, why marriages don't work anymore, and
Mm,
why it's difficult for men to stay faithful because they have access to to so much sex, and just the relationship has been so distorted. So what
mm,
I would
mm, mm,
advise men, that first of all, pornography is like, it's like sexual poison. Like it's really designed to keep you in this loop,
mm,
and it's designed to make you an addict, just like they make cigarettes very addictive. They make pornography addictive as well.
mhm,
So that's the first thing that I would try to lose. And then I would advise the man, just to start off, because you're not going to go full monk mode right away.
Mhm.
just to instead of retaining it, just try to delay it, right? So and be conscious also from men, be conscious who you sleep with, because there is also this, I think it's not a healthy idea that men, that it is okay for men to sleep with anyone, of course. Everything is okay. Everything you do is your choice, and there's no wrong
Mhm.
or right. I want to make that clear, because your path is your path, and if you have a
Mhm.
certain sexual path, then it's also fine. But if you feel like you want to change something and you want to deepen the connection, instead of just having like these sexual encounters that just leave you drained and empty, then it's good to also think as man, who am I actually giving my semen to? Who am I giving my life force to? Is it someone that values me, or is
Mm.
it someone that is with me because of my looks, or because of my money, or because of my connections? So
Mm.
that is
Mm. Mm.
also good, to realize, quantity or quality. And then when you have sex, it's good to maybe not every time release your semen. Try to hold it in and see how it affects you. What is your energy level like? Because when a man and a woman have sex and there is semen release,
Mhm.
often the very first thing that happens is the man want to detach, like they want to just get up and go and move on, because they are not, like, the connection is gone. They have lost their semen and they've lost
Right.
their life force,
Right.
and for them the connection is gone. Correct me if I'm obviously not a man, so I don't know how they feel like. So if you want to correct me, please do so.
Right.
And for
Right.
a
Right.
woman, for a woman, the oxytocin is generated, I think, is the hormone, and they want to connect. So the woman after sex really
Ah.
want to cuddle and be together, and and the man is like, no, I'm just gonna get up and go about my day. So it really breaks the connection. So
Right. Right. Right.
yeah, that would be good to first of all lose the porn. That would be number
Right.
one. And second of all, try to delay, or not lose the semen as much.
Mm.
Third
Mm.
is
Mm.
we think who you're sleeping with, if you're
Okay.
choosing quality over quantity. And also the last thing is I forgot what the last thing was, but that are already a lot of powerful practices.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one thing that really intrigued me when and firstly, these are great tips. I think this would be a great start for any guy out there who's trying to get out of it and everything. One
Yeah.
thing that really intrigued me, even when I was like watching some of your videos and and whatnot, was the whole idea of retaining your semen, like while having sex. Like how I would be honest with you, I thought that was like, like I did not realize like that was even a thing, like until like I was exploring your content and everything as a result of that.
Mhm.
How is that even possible? Like, like that's something I was just wondering about. Yeah.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time in my course about this topic, because that is
Right.
also the most challenging one, right? So
Right.
for
Right.
women, it's easier to retain their orgasm because they don't even orgasm that easily, and that is not a problem. Like for men, it has a lot of implications.
Mm.
And first of all, it's like, what is the benefit? Because if you don't see the benefit, you're never going to do the practice, and that is
Right.
something that you have to experience by trying it.
Mm.
And
Mm. Mm.
it's like, for example, just to make it more practical, so you get an idea of how it works. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for men to have sex, it is possible for them, but it really requires a lot of dedication also to the woman. So imagine a man and a woman are going to have like cosmic sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they start with breathing together. That's actually the practice. They breathe together and they do meditation together. Like they sit in front of each other, breathing, and also do the eye gazing.
Mm.
And like they see like the chakras like intertwined. So that is just part of the connection between them.
Mm.
And then they can do the sex practice as you would do it normally. But instead of how do you call it, releasing semen, like ejaculating, there is
Mm-hmm.
also this thing that's called injaculating. Like that,
Mm.
that means that the man can experience an orgasm without releasing semen. Like it is like, and it's so difficult, but it's like the semen release can be seen separate from orgasm. So, for example, some people also lose semen while they're sleeping in their dream.
Mm,
And
mm, mm,
like a lot of men who practice semen retention, when they release semen in their sleep, that's a sign that it's been too long. Like you cannot hold semen forever. Like for example, every 2 or 3 weeks, it would be good to release semen either during the sexual practice or not. It doesn't matter.
okay,
But
okay, okay.
yeah, so that's something, but it takes a lot of practice, and it takes also for the woman also dedication, because if you're a woman and your man tells you, okay, I want to practice semen release, well, then you have a part to play as well, right? Because that
Mm,
means, you have to look out with what positions, and you have to really go slow. For example, when you practice it the first times, you can do like 1 minute, and then longer without releasing. And when the man feels like it's already going close, that's
mm,
already, if you wait too long, then you cannot hold it anymore. So it requires a lot of dedication, but also the cosmic breathing and visualizations, like we do also in Cosmic Sexuality, meditation with cosmic breathing and then visualization of the sexual energy through your chakras. That was also what I'm going to say. Like a man that deal with a lot of, yeah, let's say impure thoughts. I don't want to really call them impure, but a lot of men that have like addiction to porn, they want to quit that, but they have it in their mind, like it possesses you. So
mm,
then the meditation and circulating the sexual energy away from the root chakra up to your crown, and then you can use that energy to create other things, and not only dedicated to like masturbating and releasing semen, because then the energy is lost at the root area. While if you let it circulate through your body, it can
mm.
really be expanded and make you use it for other purposes. So that
Right,
is
right,
very
right.
important, because if the root area gets too heated, then it's never going to work. It has to circulate through the body.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. Like earlier, you mentioned about cooperation with partner, because that's one thing I was thinking as you were mentioning everything was how much, does it involve the other person? Because I don't think like this is something that, just because semen retention, especially while having sex, is something that I felt like, needed the partner's kind of like help as well. So thanks for clarifying that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Both
yeah.
partners really need to, first of all, make the decision if you want to do this, because it
Mm,
requires a lot of practice. And how far do you want to go? You don't have to go all the way. It's just, what do you want to explore with each other? And the woman, that's why they advise couples to do like a woman on top, because then she can really control and let the man, tell you when to stop. And it really also requires patience of the woman.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. Okay, okay, okay.
And then you have,
Yeah,
of course, the cosmic orgasm,
right.
which is for the woman and for the man. They can orgasm at the same time, and the man then ejaculates. So it's not like something is going inward, but it's just the orgasm without semen release, without ejaculation. But it's a real
Mhm.
orgasm. It's like full body orgasm. So it's not only at the root, and it's supposed to be the greatest thing ever. You can also experience this cosmic orgasm on your own, but together, of course, it's even deeper, and the woman can also go in orgasm, and that is essentially what you're working towards. But it requires a lot of practice.
Right, right, right. Yeah, like I don't think like like it's I mean in on like paper it might seem very simple, but like yeah, what you're saying definitely requires a lot of, control and cooperation between
Yeah,
two people. And yeah, like but it's really interesting to see all this because and one thing I wanted to ask was what's the history behind this? Because like I was really curious about that because it had to start from somewhere, and I feel like in modern day it's all lost, and people are rediscovering
yeah.
it probably. So where did this start? Like how did this like what's the origin of these types of practices?
Right. That's a very interesting question. I know I am not very aware of the history of this, but I know I have seen literature that
Okay.
this was practiced thousands of years ago. I think in the Egyptian times it was also practiced.
Okay.
I think it was even practiced more than now, because of our sexuality. humankind in general has
Mm-hmm.
been more advanced in many practices thousands of years ago than we are now. So we
Right.
actually regressed, right? And
Mm.
hopefully, the collective, we're going to ascend a little bit again. But thousands of years ago, like in the Egyptian era, I think these practices were there as well, especially the eye gazing and the breathing together. I think it has been practiced before, but it wasn't until I think in 60s or 70s when Tantra was, I don't want to say rediscovered, but it was like, let's say, it caught the interest of the West. We as the West, we started to get attention, interest in meditation, Hinduism, Buddhism, and
Right.
also
Right. Right.
Tantra. Yeah, and then the Tantra has like, let's say, westernized here. I'm not sure how much it has to do with the original Tantra, but that also sparked the interest of practicing this here. And I think with people like Jordan Peterson, I think there's like this movement now, especially for men, and I'm actually very happy that this movement is there. That lets men rethink their masculinity and how they
Mm-hmm.
want
Mm-hmm.
to use it, right? And it generates a lot of discussion. Look at the Andrew Tate quotes and people who follow
Yeah.
him, and but there's a lot of truth to men taking back their power and saying, hey,
Right.
also our semen is not for every woman. Like, I am also valuable as a man. When you
Mm.
sleep with me, you may also feel, lucky to sleep with me because I'm valuable. And then there's a mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's not only for women. For women is of course also the case,
Mm-hmm.
but the men are really starting to get to know their own masculinity again. And I'm very happy with that
Right,
development.
right. Yeah, I mean, let's go into that. But before that, like really quick, like I wanted to ask you this, because I really am interested to know about your views on it. So in nature, one thing about like the masculine, part of it is that many animals are polyamorous, right?
Hmm.
And some men kind of use it as some sort of a justification, that men can be polyamorous because like they can
Hmm.
ejaculate like very often, but like a woman only produces one egg per month and things like that. So what do you
Yeah.
what's your view on that? Like, is it like really, are we really designed that way, or is it just a myth?
Mhm.
I was really curious to find out about that.
Yeah, that's such an interesting topic. And I've been getting a lot of this stuff on my feed. And I was like, what's with this algorithm? Like, leave me alone. Because
Right,
I am
right.
a, actually, the funny thing is, I think 1 or 2 years ago, I think 1.5 years ago, I actually had a relationship with someone
Mm,
that told me we can get married, but I want to, have several wives because he came from a culture where it's like
mm,
still like normal. And I really struggle with that because I was like, I can really see some benefits to it, but in the end I decided it's not for me. Like, I don't
mm.
that's not something that I'm ready for, so I declined that and I like moved on with my life. But
Okay.
I've had a lot of discussions about it, and I think, definitely in nature there it's true. Like, as I
Mm,
said, men are the givers,
mm,
and men are the hunters. They are
mhm,
more, women are more focused on the household, inwards, and the men go out more. So that is definitely true. But also, I see a lot of men saying this in Animal Kingdom and the lion, and they have several wives, and he's then the most attractive one. He's then the alpha male, and I'm like, okay, but we are not animals. Like, we are a
right,
different species.
right, right.
We have a different consciousness. So if you
Right,
want to
right.
behave like a lion, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we are not animals. So this is a choice you have to make. Like, it's
Mm,
fine. I like there's nothing wrong with it, but personally I don't resonate with it because I feel like,
mm,
and this is what I also learned in my Cosmic Sexuality, like, what are you going to find in three women that you don't find in one, right?
mm,
So if you really want to deepen the connection, it's also about like just deepening connection. And eventually a relationship is also designed to build a family, and you can only make a child with two persons. Like, you cannot make a child with three persons. It's only with two persons. So I believe it's more beneficial, in my view, to connect with one.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
really, and if you want, there are people that do the Cosmic Sexuality course and they are poly, because but then you
mm,
have to really establish a connection with your partner. Then you
mm,
can add to another one, but it makes it complicated because you have two women. The women don't connect with each other. Well, it also can be, but usually the women don't connect. They don't have a relationship like they do with the men. So
mm,
there's like a
mm, mm,
third party involved. So I think a lot of women do it because there's also a lot of fear for women. Like many women think, oh, I'm getting older. Like maybe I'm not that desirable. Like they want a man that's
mm.
desirable and they will settle. So I don't think that's not something that I would, but I think everyone is free to do so. I think in many
Mhm.
countries it works. It works. It's supposed to work. So yeah, that's a choice everyone has to make for themselves. So personally, I think what is the benefit and why do you do it? And if you really need to spread your seed, are you then not still in the phase where you are discovering yourself? Like when is the time when you say, okay, I can just focus on one woman? I'm not sure. What's your view
Right.
on it, actually? I'm curious.
Right, because for me, like I am more like a one woman type of guy.
Mhm.
Simply because like yeah, I mean in the olden times when like people were getting conquered and people were conquerors, leaders, they to ensure their lineage and things like that. They had maybe several. They took several women, and like Genghis Khan is one of the famous examples, right? Like they
Oh
always
yeah.
say like yeah, several thousand people or yeah several hundred thousand people have his DNA or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it made sense then. Like I say, for me it's like it's better to just focus on one partner because like I think you can develop a much more deeper connection.
Hmm.
And I just felt like it was something that is much more meaningful when you just have one partner to connect with and grow and evolve. And yeah, like I don't think that, yeah. And you also brought up a great point, which I was also thinking as well, like how does the dynamic between the if let's say I take two women, like how does their dynamic work? And
Yeah.
potentially like the kids and the potential rivalry that could result as because of that and all those things. um
Yeah.
and yeah, so for that particular reason, like I would just prefer to just like go for one woman. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Genghis Khan because I was listening to this other podcast, and it was about also about it was about demons actually, and it said like there is this channel book that said that like Genghis Khan he like he how do you say it, like he progressed to fourth dimension negative, like he was very negatively oriented
Right.
entity. Let's say he was very evil, and like some studies show like millions of people have his blood, like he like basically raped entire Asia and he like killed so many people. And that's also a path, like some men, they choose a path of they don't want to commit to one person, and they are not interested in deepening a connection with one. They are just interested in conquering. So that's I think in my last video I also spoke about this, like some men that were brought up in a certain way, feeling very unsafe. They
Mm.
like some men, they have to constantly validate their heterosexuality, and they have to conquer and conquer and conquer and conquer, so they cannot quit like getting women. So it's
Right,
just,
right.
yeah, so that's also a choice. So at what consciousness am I, and what is something, what am I ready for, and choosing accordingly.
Right, right, right. That makes sense. Yeah. It's interesting the whole thing about Genghis Khan because I don't think someone would be able to do what he did without ascending to some level. So that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Um yeah. So and coming back to Andrew Tate, like what are your views on him? Like I'm interested to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, the movement. Like I haven't
Right.
even first of all, I'm not like I haven't seen a lot of videos. I only see what I've seen in Instagram. I know
Mm-hmm.
that people say that he said certain things. I haven't seen the videos myself, I see
Okay.
some clips here and there, but I am very interested in the discussion about him, because it, like, you see that it brings up so much fear in people, right? So
Mm.
here is this guy that's saying all these outrageous things that we are just
Mm.
not willing to accept, and but he's also saying a lot of good things, right? And I
Right.
think you need some extremes
Mm.
to make sure that society is open for some truth. Just like Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan
Mm.
Peterson. I saw him in September. Actually, he came to the Netherlands.
Oh,
So I
okay.
went there with yeah. He went. I went there with my brother, and there were people protesting in the
Oh my God.
at the venue. Yeah, with rainbow flags and all. But I really don't see, because I've read his books. I really don't see the racism or the transphobia. I don't see it. Like, I haven't seen anything that supports it. But people are just. It's a different sound. It's a
So do
different
folks
message.
say that he's transphobic or something? Is that what they claim?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
because
okay,
he's
okay.
because of the videos where he said he's not going to use all the pronouns that people ask him to use, because he
Right,
feels
right,
differently
right,
about it. But
right.
people are just very much, whether it's about racism or about feminism.
Mm,
There
mm,
are some truths that are told, but they are brought so extreme
mm,
that
mm, mm,
it just makes a shockwave. Like this Andrew Tate, he
mm,
grows by all this negative attention. Like,
mm,
if we would really want him to just be forgotten and irrelevant, then we would not even, all these hate comments are just rising. So I think I don't resonate with some content he has. I don't resonate with it.
mm,
Him talking,
mm,
for
mm,
example, about, I only date 18, 19-year-olds because they are, easy to manipulate. And it sounds negative to me. It sounds like a
mm,
negative
mm,
path to
mm,
me.
mm, mm, mm.
And he's very much about empowering, right? He can, like, he,
Right,
he
right,
can
right.
bring men that are, for example, depressed. They feel
Mm,
like a victim of their lives, and they
mm,
feel like they are abused by women and their employer.
mm,
If a man like that listens to Andrew Tate, he can really be ascending in his consciousness, and he can really be learning something from Andrew Tate.
mm,
But
mm,
if you're
mm,
at
mm,
when it comes to, you teach law of attraction, which
mm,
means I am not a victim of my life. I
mm.
I create my circumstances, right? But if you're there, maybe you're not so interested in dating someone you can manipulate, because you already know that you're in control, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah. I mean, like for me, like personally, when I saw some of his videos, like I did check out his content. Like again, like this whole thing came up on Instagram and everything. So when I saw his videos, like definitely, I think he said something along the lines of women property or something like that. I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
some people disagree with, which I understand and I agree with that too. Like women aren't property, and
Mm-hmm.
like for me, one thing I always tell people is take what resonates and leave the rest, right? um you
Exactly.
know like I don't you don't have to, just because you resonate with some of his content doesn't mean you resonate with all of his content. And that goes
Exactly.
for even like any teacher, like even Neville, who I follow.
Mm-hmm.
Like Neville's views on money is completely different from, like, say, my view of money.
Okay.
Like I think like he's the type of person who would just with money, he's like, okay, as long as I have enough to do my day-to-day stuff, I'm
Mm-hmm.
good. I don't need to be a millionaire, right? I don't
Right.
need that, like, opulence or luxury. For me, it's a little different. Like, I would love to experience that,
Yeah.
just for the fun of it. Like Jim Carrey, I think, once said, like, I wish everyone could get rich just to see how empty it is, you know
Right. Yeah.
so and even for that, like, I think it's a part of evolution, it's part of growth. Just to see what that life looks like, just to get at least a glimpse of it. And from
Yes.
there, you don't just like plateau. Life goes on, you evolve into something else for sure. And so, like, it's like that. So my point is, like, I
Yeah.
completely don't resonate with Andrew Tate, but like as a man, when I see that, whatever he said about being empowered and things like that, firstly, I don't think like people should take everything he says seriously, because he's portraying a caricature of sorts, like he's
Right, a
portraying a
persona.
character.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I've heard is that one, apparently, I'm not sure how true this is, or I can't verify this, but apparently he is married.
Oh,
um
okay.
yeah. So apparently he is married, and he does, I think, have kids as well, if I'm not wrong. Like that's what
Yeah.
is being said. Like I think I'm not sure if you know this guy called Aiden Ross or somebody. Like I think he's always like
No.
comes with Andrew Tate, like he's a friend of his or something. He's a
Okay.
streamer. So I think like he actually like told him, and then someone like kind of verified the information on another podcast or something. Again, this is all like secondhand info that I'm just sharing with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the reason why I'm bringing that up is that like I feel like people take like what his persona too seriously, you know,
Exactly.
not realizing there's a comedic aspect to it as well. um
Yeah. Right.
and I
Yeah.
think like with Andrew Tate, like one thing is that, yeah, like his core thing is that men have become kind of docile over the years. Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
becoming like from a wolf we became somewhat like a domesticated dog of sorts. Like I was just thinking about the other day, that's what we men are like almost becoming. And and if you can see like the closest relative, like a husky and a wolf, it's
Mm-hmm.
still drastically kind of different kind of behaviors and everything. And and men, especially, since like even as like as early as like say maybe 50, 60 years, it might seem like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, that's just like two generations. Men have
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
become really kind of like life has become very easy for men.
Mm-hmm.
And like not everyone is that kind of like masculine strong kind of men, and which they should be, because that's what carries the society forward. And we kind of
Mm-hmm.
are seeing like the degradation of society around the world is partly due to men not being able to step up, you know
Right. Yeah.
and and that and the far left movement, and
Mm-hmm.
like all that kind of stuff, it really plays into it. And like Andrew Tate is like the exact opposite of that movement,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He is coming and saying, no, men should really like learn to master their emotions, really need to
Mm-hmm.
take their life in charge. And like no, it's not okay to just cry around in public, for example. you know
Yeah.
you need to kind of take charge and go and do the things that you have to do, not because it's easy or something, but even when it's hard, you have to do it. Like what Jordan Peterson would say, it's necessary, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just like an option for men to be like that. And and I think like a lot of like, and this is the thing, it's not just like men who are supporting this, a lot of women are supporting this kind of thing as well. Because
Yes.
one thing I've seen is I was talking about this to my friends as well, is the basic unit of any society is a family.
Yes.
And
True.
that has been disrupted over the last few decades. Is like, for example, my great grandparents or my grandparents, like like they stayed at home, they nurtured the kids, they looked
Mm-hmm.
after, they maintained the home, which is a huge thing. Like it's not just something easy. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy work, maintaining a
No,
household, nurturing kids. It's a big deal. That's one thing I just
it
wanted to put
is.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
you know because people think like, oh, like when girls, like some of my friends tell me, oh, I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom or wife, and I'm just going to you
It's hard. Like I find it hard to cook. I was talking about with my friend. She said my
right.
grandma she cooked for 20 people and like it was no big deal. She thinks we women we are weak. We cannot do it anymore.
Right. Yeah, and I tell people, like people, especially like I think like some the people who are in their 20s, like my generation,
Hmm.
uh, like kind of underestimates like what goes into it. They think like
Yes.
stay at home wife or something is just very easy. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what are you going to do? And like a lot of them are like, they give me the funniest of replies. They're like, oh, we're gonna hire like
Oh
domestic
yeah.
workers, and I'm just gonna be like just chilling at home. I was like, no, that's not being a stay-at-home wife. Like you
No,
know
it's not.
yeah, exactly. Like you should see the like because I was raised by my great grandmother, actually.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, so I was raised by three generation of women, like my great
Oh,
grandmother, her daughter-in-law, which is my grandmother, and then my
oh,
mom. So yeah, like so I was like, and I kind of saw these women like like all taking in charge of everything.
yeah.
Because my dad, like I didn't like really have a lot of memories with my dad early on in my childhood, because he was in Singapore working, because I was in India.
Hmm.
So a lot of things was done by women who took charge, right?
Right.
Who really especially in the household, and it takes a lot of work. And one thing that I'm seeing these days is that when women go to work, the child is alone, you know that is vulnerable, right? Like the kid is
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable to being programmed by the matrix, as Andrew Tate will call it.
Yes.
um
Yeah.
you know and yeah, and then when the man also goes to work and there's no women as well, the kid grows up under the influence of what the matrix wants. And I think that's what one of the things that he was kind of against as well, which I completely agree, that when the
Mm-hmm.
basic societal structure is broken, you
Yes.
can like really crumble it down. And that's what we are kind of seeing right now, is the mother goes to work, so does the dad. The child grows up without any supervision. Like I always tell my friends, like if I grew up, or if many of us, like, because most of my friends come from immigrant families like myself.
Mm-hmm.
We migrated here, like we didn't, like our families didn't like grow up like in Singapore generation to generation. We
Yeah.
came here, so like, and I used to tell my friends, and many of them agreed, is that if we are half as decent as we are right now, is because of the fact that our moms were at home to supervise
Right.
us. Like
It's
9 times
true.
out of 10, the friends who I saw who grew up, who went in a different trajectory in life, a lot of their parents were either divorced or had their
Mm-hmm.
moms working. And that leaves the child kind of that leverage to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it really goes south. So this is why
Yeah.
I always like kind of like advocate for the traditional kind of household. And that's what
Yeah.
he was kind of going back to, because he says that people did that for a reason. It's not like they were
Yeah.
trying to oppress women or anything. It was more like it had a purpose, right?
Yeah.
And it's
I
not like
agree with
women,
you.
yeah, like they had, like they weren't like always like oppressed as like slaves per se. I felt
No.
that they understood their role in society, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Andrew brought this point as well at one point. Is like, society has brainwashed women to think that, like, okay, the fact that you can bring life into this world is a gift, it's a blessing. And
Mm-hmm.
to think that there are things that are more important than that, maybe you can get a fulfillment more than that in, like, say, a career, for example, is
Mm-hmm.
misleading. Because like there are several studies that kind of shows that, like, women in their late 40s or 50s and stuff like that, who are thriving in their career, who come back to an empty home, don't feel that
Yeah.
satisfaction.
No, they
Because,
don't.
yeah. And I think it's these types of things that when I hear that he says, I was like, what, he's right, like that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
obviously it's a threat to the establishment, because it literally goes
Mm-hmm.
against everything that they are saying. So they kind of latch on to the things that that he said, which were like against, that were kind of in the extreme ends, and they kind of latch on to that, calling him
Yes.
like a
And
misogynist
they
and everything
and they
like that. Yeah.
highlight they highlight those things, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and I feel like, well, I think what that did was to only fuel this even more, which kind of worked in his advantage as well. Is
Exactly. Mm.
yeah, people started paying attention to what he says, and people really resonate with a lot of those things that he said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, like, you might bring him down, but the movement lives. Like, men
Right.
are
If you
awakening. Yeah.
lock him up, you will just get another one.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like right now it's all crumbling.
Yeah.
Especially I think like people are getting really tired about the whole far left thing.
Yeah.
Especially with like pronouns and everything. I agree with Jordan Peterson on that front, because and this is something I've never really spoken about, but thank you for bringing that up. And like, I'm glad we are having this discussion right now.
So yes.
Yeah, because I think with pronouns and everything, like, where does it stop is my question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You
Like,
know what's
if yeah.
interesting, because you're seeing a lot of things that you're speaking so many truth, and I agree with like basically everything you said. Just to point some things out, why the main question when a lot of people get offended nowadays. They get offended by Andrew Tate. They get
Right.
offended by a lot of things, right? So my key question is, and I have this. I'm a manager. I work at Dutch Customs, so I have a team of 25 people, and a lot of people also are offended at my job. And I always ask them, go. You can tell me that you are offended, but you know what would be great? Look into the mirror and ask yourself, why does it trigger me? Why does it trigger me that someone out there says, For example, I hear once a guy say my age say I only want a girlfriend that's 20 years old. Like I'm 37,
Mm,
so I'm
mm,
like, oh, it triggers me. Okay, why does it trigger me? Usually
mm,
it's fair, right? Usually it's fair. Or
mm,
I then I conclude that then I adopt a lot of beliefs and I am threatened, I feel threatened and I feel fear. So that's why it triggers me. When you tell women, that about the career, I have a career myself, and I've heard a lot from them. Oh, you chose
mm,
career over love. I don't see it
mm,
that way because it was
mm.
always my dream to be married, but my life just I made different choices. But
Right,
I
right,
so
right,
agree because for women, and that's why I sometimes understand why women also go in this movement. Women are so tired, like they have took on the roles of the man, leaving the
right.
man like confused, and they took also the role of the mom because you
Mm,
can really you can outsource it. That's what we're doing.
mm,
We're
mm, mm,
outsourcing our mother role. I'm bringing my son to daycare, and because I
mm,
need to work, also because of
mm,
financial, we think we do need to do it for financial gains,
mm.
but it's tiring. Like I have a
It
job
is.
where I have to
Yeah.
adopt a lot of masculine traits. I have to structure, I have to leave, I have to command even, right? And as a woman, everyone has masculine and feminine energy. That's fine. You
Mm,
don't have
mm,
to
mm.
be one side of the spectrum. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
completely okay. But to all day, sometimes when you feel tired at night, and I'm like, okay, so maybe in my job, I would like to be more creative and intuitive and
Mm,
caring, but that's
mm.
just not my job. I just have to get shit done. So it's tiring. So it would be very beneficial for women as well, but it threatens their current beliefs. So I'm like, why does it trigger you? That's so interesting to understand.
It is, it is, it is. And I don't think like you said, like enough people kind of sit down and think about those things. Rather they would, be much more happy to kind of like, take, pitchforks against folks like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate because,
Yeah.
it's everything that, kind of triggers them within, but they don't ask why it triggers them or things like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like with again, like with pronouns and everything, like one thing like I was thinking was where does it stop? Because
Mm-hmm.
like I can identify myself as the brother or president of the United States or even president of the United
Mm.
States. Does that mean it's true? you know there was a like funny clip where like this guy was wearing like Trump for women or something like that, and then like a white lady went to him and like was like asking him something, and then he just like shot down her with just like one comment like, did you just assume my gender? you know
Oh my God. Yeah.
right? And you can see how quickly it crumbles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like what you said, and women are like getting tired for sure because it's not natural to be carrying all those masculine traits.
Mm.
And I feel that more and more like we are definitely seeing a shift, and I think like I think it's for the better for sure.
Yeah.
um in the sense that like I think people are kind of recognizing that everyone kind of has a role to play in society, and
Yeah.
they kind of like, okay, they're gonna like mold themselves. It's a slow change, but
Yeah.
like especially I think like one thing that I've been noticing is that a lot of women in their 30s are kind of recognizing that. Maybe not women
Yeah.
in their 20s that much, but like I think they can recognize like, what, like I can't put this up, because in your 20s you might have the energy and kind of that to kind of like say, what, I'm going to prioritize career, I'm going to do XYZ. But by
Yeah.
30 you kind of like realize like, what, like I understand where this is going type of thing. And
Yes.
yeah, and I feel like that and I'm glad, like, and these people aren't just like keeping it to themselves. Like I think they are also kind of sharing it with like younger women as well. So that's a good
Yeah.
thing. And I feel like
It's
this
really
is,
good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I really feel that it a lot of people are starting to kind of benefit from that, like
Yeah.
and again, like like maintaining a household is a big deal. Like it's
Yeah.
not something to be underestimated. The people, again, like who I look up to, all they did was like really like maintain households, and also did like even my grandmother, like she worked in the fields, and like we had like tobacco plantations at one point, and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like women don't work, they've always worked, but in a very different way compared to men,
Yeah.
right?
It's true.
um like I always like, I don't know if you have seen this image, like when they were building like the iconic like skyscrapers in New York back in the 1920s and stuff. There's an image where like men are having lunch on
Oh
like a
yeah.
steel, yeah. And that, that kind of shows, like, can you imagine, like, like women being put to that task? It's not like degrading them or anything.
No.
It won't even be expected of them back in the day, you know
No.
and because it's something that involves like, lifting and carrying. And
Yeah.
you just don't expect that. Like, I was just asking, I think, like one of my friends as well, because in Singapore and like Israel, like they do conscription service as well. Like, both countries do conscription service, like military service. But in Israel,
Oh
it's both
yeah.
men and women. But in Singapore, it's just the guys. I
Yeah.
kid you not, like I've never seen like one guy complain about why don't the girls do it,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And it's because I feel like they understand somewhere, like, a lot of people, because when you're conscripted, like, a lot of people come in with like different emotions. Some people are like, oh, it's just an experience, I'm going to experience it. But for some people it's like, no, this is like, disrupting my plans and things
Mm.
like that. Like, they come in with, but even in the most negative of people I've met in the military, like no one really said, why aren't the girls doing this with us, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone say that, because it was funny because I was reflecting it today, because it marks the 2 years today of me leaving the military. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I was just reflecting on my journey and everything, and that was one thing that kind
Yeah.
of came up to my mind, was like no one really questioned that. I felt like somewhere they
No.
inherently understood, like, what, everyone has a role to play in society, and this is my
Yeah.
role.
But you
And
don't see women also on the streets protesting and why they can do like why there are no more not a lot of women in construction because it's like it's hard work, like it's physically hard
precisely,
work, and
yeah, I think Jordan
women don't
Peterson
want to
brought
do
it up.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think he
Yeah.
said, like, why don't we like only protest for the
Equalize that.
C-suite?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why don't we equalize that? And it really
Yeah.
falls apart. That's my thing, is that I don't know how these movements get sustained, because you can pretty much like knock these things out pretty quickly, you know
Hmm.
they are very, these arguments that they kind of bring up is very very loose, in the sense that you can bring it down really quickly. But the moment
Yeah.
you start asking, okay, equality in all areas, then why? Even the sorry, even the act of like splitting bills, for example. If you want
Yeah.
equality, then why not split bills, right? And I think, like, that type of thing kind of puzzles. And I think one thing, I was recently talking to one of my clients too, and she brought up this point, is that a lot of women these days want both. They want traditional values where it benefits
Hmm.
them, but they also want that whole liberal aspect where it benefits them. They want to
Yeah.
have the best of both worlds, so to speak. And
Yeah.
and she brought up the point that people have to choose, because it's either the
Yeah.
one way or another. Neither way is
It's
wrong, in my
true.
opinion, but you have to choose one way. You can't have it both ways. And I
Yeah, you
think,
cannot be hypocrite
yeah,
about this.
exactly. But I guess the where women kind of like these days kind of struggle is that they are failing to understand, like, maybe they can't have it both ways. you know
Yeah.
I don't think, like, with men it's a big of an issue, because because men get really the really the harsh reality. Either you step up, or you're a bum in the society, type of thing.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not
Right.
sure because I see also a lot of guys that are saying the same things. Like, I want a woman to be a housewife, and
Mm.
that's just what I want to do. But then when it comes to providing,
Mm.
I still see a lot of. I was talking about this with a friend of mine. A lot of guys that in their 30s here, I
Right.
just see them not working. I'm not sure what's. I think maybe it's a European thing, but a lot of
Right.
guys here, they just don't, and when they make money, you cannot
Mm.
then spend your money on pimping your car. You must actually spend it in your home
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
give
yeah.
it to the family. No, that's also for men. I think it's about giving up, like you're gaining something, but you have
Right.
to give up something. And
Yeah,
for
yeah, no,
women
I
it's
agree with
very
you. Yeah.
scary to
Yeah.
give up the
Yeah.
financial security, because when you get married and he leaves you for a younger woman, what are you going to eat, right? So that's still some beliefs that we have that make it scary. And I think the discussion is hardening because you very well pointed out about things changing, and the Matrix, and I don't want to say they, but they want your child to be disconnected, like the
Right, right,
disconnecting the
right.
family. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think we all know that there are forces that
Mm,
drive us
mm,
away.
mm, mm,
You
mm,
can say drive us away from God, or drive us away from our purpose, or that's disconnects us, that lowers our
mm,
consciousness. There
mm.
are forces in play that are
Definitely.
moving us towards separation.
That is not conspiracy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, that's just, and we are meant to be, going towards unity.
Mm,
So that's why they discuss, and that's why I'm actually glad to hear extreme viewpoints also from the radical left, because I also don't resonate with radical left, or with the left, or with
mm, mm,
woke. That's
mm,
something that triggers me. But
mm,
then when I hear people say things, I'm like, okay, why does it trigger me? Because they
mm,
have also, the woke movement, even though I don't resonate with them, but they have made possible for some really, how do you call it, abusive situations. They have also exposed a lot of harsh
mm,
reality.
mm, mm, mm,
But you
mm.
must look out, because there's a lot of false light here, because I follow a lot of Aaron Apke. Have you heard of him?
Yes, yes, I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've watched a lot of videos, and he says, every situation that makes
Mm,
you as the person better than the other. So it's like I'm protesting another group.
mm,
Either it's the farmers against, or whatever. It's one group of people against one group of people. It
mm.
makes you feel like you are superior. That is
Right, right,
separation.
right,
So,
right,
and then the government, or whatever people at power, in power, they can make you believe like we do this for your good, or
right.
they are taking your rights away. But in reality, if you feel
Mm,
deep down, it's just separation.
mm,
And that's why you see the discussion hardening, and this is a great opportunity. So some people will, a lot of people, most people will choose the battle. They will
mhm,
just defend their own superiority. They will defend their own viewpoints
mhm,
out of fear, and others will just see it as an opportunity to learn. When it comes to, the pronouns of what you're saying, actually in cosmic sexuality we learn this as well, how
mhm,
you deal with, same-sex couples. And
mm,
it's like this: every entity, every human being is of one polarity, not an extreme. Like, for example,
mm,
you have very masculine type of women,
mhm,
women with a lot of masculine traits, that have
mhm,
husbands that have many feminine traits. But
mm,
they go really well together. They make perfect union because they match in polarity.
mm,
So, but each entity is one or the other, right? So you're male, you're female. You
mm.
might be male in your body, but be more
Right,
feminine in your essence. For me,
right.
that's fine. And then if you want to give it another name, for me, it's just semantics, right? So
Mm,
for me, it's like I don't really care for that, but you must choose one. Or if you're not choosing, it's the whole purpose of this dimension is choosing. You must choose one or the other, and you can do that in fluid ways or whatever, but it's
mm,
always one masculine entity and one feminine entity. Like two masculine entities, no matter if they're female or male, or if they have
mm.
penis or vagina, it will clash. It's just the law.
Right,
It's
right.
just like the law of attraction. It works. The law of attraction, we know. A lot of people try to tell like law of attraction doesn't work. There's no way it doesn't work, because it's the
Mm,
law.
mm.
It's just the application of
Right,
it, or
right.
you're sabotaging yourself with some practices. But just like the law of gender is a law. So
Mm.
whatever you choose to do with your body, you can turn yourself into anything, but you will always be one polarity.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I love all the points you brought up, like especially the feeling of like superior and things like that. That's not the purpose of this. Definitely, it's not like the right is better than the left or anything like that. um you know Definitely, I think like in the modern day, like we have brought up some good things as well, like men focusing on their mental health. I think like it's a good
Yeah.
thing, but at the same time, like you can't like also have like two men who are like too soft as well, like
Yeah.
so like I would say that's like these are extreme views, but like it needs a bit of balance. Like we have technology these
Exactly.
days, and we can hear our people wherever we need to, but at the same time we can't afford to go one end or the other, basically. Like that's my whole stance on it. And I think like
That's
you're
right.
right. Yeah, yeah. And I think like the purpose of even spirituality is that if you are feeling superior just because you're quote unquote spiritual, that means you're not spiritual at all, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just
Yeah,
a spiritual ego.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
like I always tell people, like, as much as there's a saying in my language, is like, the things that you learn is, only a handful of is equivalent to only a handful of sand in your with you can grasp in the palm of your hands. But
Hmm.
the things that you have not learned is equivalent to the scale of the world. There's just so much that you don't know.
That's
And
beautiful saying.
yeah, yeah. And I always, like, like I always remember that, like, and even if like someone asks me something, I would always tell people, like, my views may evolve and change over the years. you know
Hmm.
what I believe in now, the things that I'm experiencing as I grow and evolve and things like that, it will change. It's only an issue if it doesn't change. And I'm not going to be
Yeah,
sitting here defending XYZ thing because this is what I believe in now. But is this what I'm going to be believing in the next 10 years, 20 years? Probably not. It's definitely going to evolve. um and
yeah,
yeah, and I always tell people, like, don't cling on to things too much and don't feel like you're superior to anyone. Like, there are always going to be things that you don't know. And
definitely.
yeah, so yeah, that's how I
That's
see this
that's
whole
that's
thing.
so
Yeah.
true, and this openness is beautiful. And as far as I know, you are all very open. That's the people who learn most. And
Right.
but there's also some things that are just, I almost want to say, just truths that we
Mm,
should see. For example, you were talking about, the softness of the masculine, and it is a fact.
mm,
We just see this now, that women, for example, they have a harder time getting a man, because they
mm,
will always sort of say date up. So when you have all the women going to university, getting the highest degrees and focusing on their careers and making their own
right.
money, how are you going to connect with a man? Because deep down, and that's also where, the link with the sexual part, like, I believe
Mm,
that in our sexual desires, things manifest that we fail to recognize in daily life. So you see a lot of independent women, for example, you see
mm,
them having fantasies about really dominant men, while in
mm,
reality they're very dominant in their normal life, right? So things are the way they are, and it's important that we see some truths for what they are and
mm.
work through our own limiting beliefs about it and just expand this way.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like there's a lot of like limiting beliefs there for sure. And that's not to obviously say like women shouldn't educate themselves or anything like that.
No,
But
of course, yeah, yeah,
yeah, like I think like the point is, like definitely embrace your feminine side. If you are a woman, like, embrace that side of you, and like, allow the man to kind of like shine as well where he should do, shine. And that's the same thing
yeah.
for men too. Like what you said earlier, you're right, absolutely right about, men shouldn't just be like, pimping out their cars and everything. They should
Mhm.
definitely provide for the family. And I think that's one of the biggest fears why this whole traditional household thing is being challenged these days, is that men aren't what they used to be as well. you know
Yeah,
yeah, because like, again, like coming back to the grandparents and great grandparents example, they weren't like, like promiscuous or things like that. Like for the most part,
exactly.
like, they understood their role. And they worked hard for the family, and like, and the women played their role. And these days it's more like, people just wanting to spend wherever they want, not taking responsibility for a
Right.
family. And
Man
the
of
thing is, yeah,
35 just want to party every week still while they have four
yeah,
children in the house.
yeah,
Just, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not your role either.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And I think like, one thing that really has happened is that, like, people, especially like one thing I see with guys is that they're not kind of taught how to raise a family. Like they are not taught like the ABCs of that, you
Yeah.
know and because of that, like when they grow up, it's like they're overgrown teenagers basically. You're
Yeah.
basically dealing with like a
True.
man child, when
Yeah.
men like 30 years old are like cheering for like Call of Duty. Like, while it's good to see, like, like they kind of embrace their inner child in some places and things like that, that's fine.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but like the extreme end of it is like, what are you doing? You're 30 years old. Like, like, are you,
Yeah.
why, like cheering for like a video game? Like, is this where
Yeah.
you really should be? Like, not being judgmental or anything, but like, it kind of shows, like, and
Yeah.
like it kind of like puts things into perspective as well. So I always say, like, like, as men, like, they need to like kind of really learn the ABCs of like, like, l- caring and running a family, like what goes into
Sure.
it. Yeah.
And
And
often they haven't had a father that gave a great example. So
mm,
I recognize this so much, because
mm,
obviously, because I'm single,
mm,
I sometimes meet men and I see many of them are just still well, not, I just want to point out, because there are a lot of really good men still and good women out there, so we must never forget that. But I do recognize this, and I think many men didn't have fathers to look up to. And how are they going to fulfill that role themselves then,
mm,
without that example? And it's the same, well, it's with women. Like, I also grew up with, my mother was at home
mhm,
most of the time, and my father was working. But my father, I remember when my father, he was like, we're a traditional Dutch family, and my father was like, we ride a lot of bikes, right? So we had
right,
one car, but my father would go to his work by bike. If it was raining, he would put on a rain suit. He was like, "Don't be a baby. You're just going to work. Don't
right,
complain." And he came home, and he would help my mother. My mother would cook, of course, but then after we had dinner, he would help my mom clean up. And on
right,
Saturday, he would be up at 7 o'clock, because he would, like, fix the fence, or like
right,
whatever. He
right,
would do
right,
stuff with us. Like, he wouldn't turn on a movie at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Like, that was not the way of life. And
right,
I
right,
I am
right,
I am also a single mom myself. I have a son,
mm,
he's 7. And my parents were divorced when I was 16. And all my I have two brothers and one sister, and my brother and sister have children, but they are also are all divorced. So how come? Because my
right,
parents had a happy marriage up until they
mm,
got divorced. But how come that we are all, and all my friends, Gautam, my female friends, like 75% is divorced or separated, and they're all not with
wow,
children. So how are we going to make sure that our children can even
mm,
navigate? Because we just put them in the hands of society, we just put them in the hands of the system at daycare and at
mm,
school. And good luck with that. And I
right,
always give this stupid example. I just bought an alarm system, right? So I have, alarm system, and whenever someone comes, our alarm goes off. It's great. But I'm like, okay, so basically I'm outsourcing my security to an alarm system. I'm not saying that, having a man in the house can prevent things from happening, but it's
mm,
like protection is one of the main
it
things
is,
that
it
women
is, it
want
is,
from men. And
mm,
now I have to, well, I'm outsourcing that, because I don't have
mm,
a man in the house, and I'm just a woman with a little boy, right?
mm,
So
mm,
it's just
mm,
so, there's nothing wrong with alarm system, that's fine. But it's just like, these are things, elements of a family unity: protection,
right,
nurturing, and
right.
providing. These are aspects of family unity that are all just fragmented and scattered.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I completely agree with that. Things like, like my dad is like pretty much like your father as well, and it's really like, like I always compare, like, what does a typical modern day man do? Because my dad was like a late 60s baby, so still kind
Mm-hmm.
of the older generation. And the way he handles things, and versus like, someone in their 30s or something like that. I always kind of compare, like, just my younger relatives and how they kind of
Yeah.
handle those types of things, and how like what you said, like, they have that kind of mentality, like, what, don't be a baby, do what you have to do, and
Right.
things like that. Kind of that roll up your sleeves, and
Yeah.
like just get things done type of mentality. And even with like manifesting, I feel like that type of attitude is really beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Instead of overthinking and like really like kind of feeling sad about your current situation and everything, can you just like pick yourself up, and like
Yeah.
just focus on the end state of mind as much as possible and go about your life.
And the
um
action. Yeah.
yeah, and just like going about your life is a big deal, like, like just having that faith that, okay, it is coming to me, I am just going by my life. In the meantime, enjoying everything in the present moment, it's a big deal. And
Yeah.
I feel like too many people are like, in this kind of like, kind of very passive state where they are not doing anything. They are, just kind of like, just roaming around, or just sitting down watching videos or just scrolling.
Yeah.
And
TikTok.
yeah, 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 it's very detrimental. And like, I mean, I sound like a boomer, but like, it's really like sometimes I really get like concerned about the future. Like if this is
Yeah.
like this right now, like what's going to happen like maybe 10, 20 years down the line, and I always tell my mom like you are lucky because you had a childhood prior to all
Mm,
this stuff. And
yeah.
I'm so jealous of you sometimes because I'm just like, I wish I had that. Like it's just so crazy because like, technology is like spreading throughout everything right now these days. And like
Yeah.
you, and I mean, this is why like, the embracing the traditional values and everything like that is so refreshing and is so
Yes.
welcome by a lot of people is because a lot of people are having like depression. And I think like in the early 2000s or the late 2000s, I believe there was a study which said that the average American high school student or somebody has like the stress level of a 1950 psychotic patient.
Oh.
And yeah, and that kind of puts things into perspective because like a lot of people are really really unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Stress and anxiety is at an all-time high. I didn't used to hear these types of terms in the past before, like especially in this last 5 years, like that's such a common thing these days. I have anxiety, I have stress,
Yeah.
and and everyone has panic attacks. And like like the solution is not like more medication or more like day
No.
offs or anything like that. It's like really getting like things done, like doing stuff like moving around and things like that.
Exactly.
And I think in Japan, like they give you what is called like a forest therapy or something, like they make you go in
Oh
a
yeah.
nature walks and things like that. That's perfect, like they get it, like because it's doing. And it's always funny when you realize like everything that they are doing, like exercise, being out in nature, that used to be our way of life. There used to be a
Yes.
point when we didn't need to dedicate time to do any of these things. It used to be our way of life. Now,
Yeah.
it's like becoming like that up movie where it's like, everyone is like, hooked onto a screen. And
Yes.
like everything gets, gets to us in a press of a button. It's like everything is what I call sterilized. Like
Yeah.
it's like it goes on
So
behind the
true.
curtains, and like we don't get an appreciation for that. Like I used to say, like if like you needed food when you were a caveman or something, you needed to hunt for it. And you needed to prepare the meal, and by the time you take the first bite, you are so much like grateful. You appreciate that meal
Yes.
so much.
Exactly.
Whereas
Yeah.
now you can just tap your button and you have KFC on your doorstep within
Yeah.
like what, 30 minutes. Like
Yeah.
where's
Do
the
you,
struggle there? Yeah.
it's also true that our attention span is not
Oh my
even,
god. Yeah, don't
it's
even get
like
me started
nothing.
on that. Yeah.
Like we cannot read books anymore. We are
Right.
unable, and we need that
Right.
gratification now. Like I and I'm guilty of that myself. We
Likewise.
cannot
Yeah.
deal with,
Yeah.
but you also mentioned this was a good one about, there is a saying, I'm sure you've read it or heard it, that says, um hard men, no, soft men, no, weak men create hard times
Yeah.
create strong men create, like say easy times, and
Easy
easy
times. Yeah.
times
Yeah.
create
Yeah.
soft men. And we are in that state, we are in the softness,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are like my son, and that's all on me, so that's just that's all my fault. But my son, when we go from the door to our car, which is like 3 meters, it's like, oh, mommy, it's raining. I have to walk through the rain. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, I get your umbrella. But then I'm like, no, like I had to cycle through the rain. And
Right. Right.
like
Right.
it's so different with one generation, and we are creating the weakest species, and we are weakening as a collective. And it's not about feeling guilty and beating ourselves up for it, but it's about,
It's about doing something
making that
about it. Yeah.
change. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
connecting with nature, and disconnecting from the screens, and just balancing it more. And also the food we take in, we can go on and on about this, but it's in every aspect.
No,
It's
I've
in our
noticed that.
sexual
Yeah. Yeah.
counterts, and the
Yeah.
food, and the way we spend our free time. And also, like what you said about, things are so quickly. When you prepare food, it always tastes better.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's also
Absolutely.
about,
Yeah.
creating. We throw away, like our consumerism, like we throw away, instead of we make the clothes again, we just throw them away. We aren't even patient enough to just, repair something. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Like even with the content, 30 minute, 30 second, sorry, content or 60-second content.
Yeah.
is always preferred more. And I'm just like, even a minute is long these days for a lot of people, just to wait
Yeah.
through a TikTok video or something. It's crazy because I'm a guy, like, I think if you watch my YouTube videos, you would know, like, I post like longer videos than anyone.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it because I really want to, like, like, take my time with it, like, as much as, yeah, shorter forms of content is better and things like that. I think Joe Rogan was one guy who,
Hmm.
like, absolutely trashed these myths. Like, he would post like 3-hour podcasts or 4
Oh yeah.
podcasts. Yeah, he would just do it. And yeah, but you're right, like, these days, like, it's getting softer and softer. Like, you look at, like, the World War II generation, like, those guys were my age when they stormed the beaches of Normandy. you
Yeah.
know can you imagine kids
Yeah.
doing this these days?
No,
No, no, absolutely not. Like,
it's
20
true.
year old American kids storming the beaches, or like, not even American, like, to be honest, like,
No.
everyone, like, all around the world, like,
Yeah.
like, it's just nothing, like, like, I would never expect an 18-year-old present day to do what the men in World War II did. They were kids too.
No.
Even men in Vietnam, like, half of the men were less than 17, or like they were around 17 actually, or something like that.
Yeah.
Boys who went to Vietnam. And it's crazy. Like, you can never expect that from guys these days. Not by a large extent, I would say. You know,
No.
and it's just crazy, like what you said with your son and everything. It's crazy because it's true for a lot of people out there,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think more kids should, like, for example, like, learning a bicycle. That falling is a part and parcel of the process, but how
Hmm.
many times are people going to do it, these days? Especially, I don't know how many kids will actually, like, have the experience of, like, falling off from their bicycle.
Yeah.
I really don't know. And one thing is, like, even in the problem these days is that it's like also permeating, like, our defense even, right?
Hmm.
Even military is like saying things like, oh, you shouldn't shout at the new recruits, or like, you shouldn't do
Yeah.
things anymore. And like, it's like creating a softer and softer kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely not healthy. But like, I think we are kind of already winning, in the sense that when we notice the difference, we do give ourselves the opportunity to change all these things.
Yeah.
And there is still hope yet, like, despite how bleak it looks. Like, I would definitely say there is hope, because the power of social media is that it's a double-edged sword, and we can definitely use it to our advantage as well. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think if we are changing as a collective, I think more and more people are waking
Mm,
up, but also, and that is not, to inflict any fear, but I think that if we don't learn this lesson, then we will
mm,
be forced to do so. Like, this is with the whole
absolutely.
energy crisis, people panicking. I'm like, if
Mm,
you take away my hot water,
mm,
or if you take away 75 of my electricity, I
right.
could just be fine, right? It's just not, there's
Mm,
not, nothing is wrong. We just have to be a little bit more uncomfortable. But we are just used to so much things we don't need, so we will
mm,
eventually be forced to do so, right? It's the
oh
same
yeah.
with the lockdown.
Mm,
People were forced to be in their houses and not be out all the time, and
mm.
spend time at home. So I think every crisis has a lesson to teach us.
Oh, definitely. I think with the last COVID crisis and everything, like, a lot of people were, kind of, people who even didn't do spiritual work, like, finally had time to kind of go inward for the first time.
Hmm.
Which I definitely saw. And it definitely, like, and that's why there's like that mass quitting, like, you see in the US, like, you hear, like, a lot of people are quitting their jobs and things like that.
Yeah.
And like, they were definitely wanting, like, more free time, and they really wanted that option of working from home to take care of, like, their household responsibilities more. And it kind of really highlighted to these people, I guess, like, what's more important. And
Hmm.
yeah. And I don't know if you are watching the show The Last of Us, premiering on HBO.
No.
Yeah, I think you should really watch it. It's like a post-apocalyptic, like, zombie kind of thing, but it's not like The Walking Dead or something. It's really very deep. It used to be a video game. They adapted it to a series, and it really, like, shows, like, how vulnerable we really are. Like,
What's it
systems.
called?
The Last of Us. The Last of Us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And because, like, it really, like, shows, like, how quickly society can fall apart, and how
Hmm.
easy, how, like, much we are used to things. and will it take like that extreme or something for us to realize that? It doesn't have to, like, we can just start being grateful for everything that we have right now, and
Yeah,
use it in a way that it empowers us but not weaken us.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think like everything that you mentioned was like literally gold. It's because I think like more and more people should like realize it. And well, how did like you come about it? Like, just to kind of wrap it up, like, how did
Yeah.
you, like, like, how did that critical thinking part start for you? Like, when did you recognize this aspect of you? Yeah.
I think it was like 2 years ago when I started like first, and that's what's so beautiful about the law of attraction. The law of attraction is often like a gateway for people to start a spiritual journey. And for me, it was also the gateway. But then you run into your own beliefs, your own limiting beliefs,
Mm,
and you see
mm.
how deep they are, right? And
Right, right.
that's make you and also combined with the lockdown and COVID and hearing all these people, that I was still on the side, of, these people are conspiracy theorists, and,
Mm, mm,
I was
mm,
just against all of that. But then you start to feel and to connect with yourself through the law of
mm,
attraction,
mm,
actually, because law of attraction, it sounds so simple when
mm.
you read this only book, The Secret, but it's so much more to that. And
Definitely. Yeah.
then, yeah, and then you start to examine yourself, but you also see truths of yourself that are not pretty. And you
Mm,
do the shadow work. And that's why, I have my periods where I create a lot, I manifest, but there are periods that I'm like, okay, now is it time to surrender? And then, you do some more shadow work, and you kind of leave it up to the universe,
mm,
and so you can be stronger and manifest again. But it's always about alignment, about what do you want, why do you want it, and
mm.
what holds me from the life I want to live. Like in terms of money, I had so much limiting beliefs because growing up with
Right.
people, my parents were born in the early 50s, and like really Calvinist mindset, of that Dutch mindset of, don't spend more than you need, don't eat more than you need, so you examine all that, and then you get into so many other things that, just make you realize, hey, there's more to this. And it's when you release your resistance and say, okay, let's just be open. I have had things, some really
Mm.
limiting beliefs that were so strong, and I was
Right.
like, okay, let's just pretend I'm not going to give that belief up, but let's just pretend I would give it up. Let's just pretend for half an hour, and I'm just going to look all the information up. And then after half an hour, I can decide if I'm going to stay with it or give it up. Right. So
Right.
you
Right.
challenge
Right.
yourself to go
Mm.
further. But the thing is, you always see more things of yourself to grow from. So, and now I'm really getting into also the cosmic sexuality, but also ascension in general. And
Right. Right.
yeah, that's
Yeah, because I was about
actually
to
I
ask you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I quit watching TV, but for the
Right.
same reason. But there's some things that are really interesting to follow still.
Oh, absolutely. Because I stopped watching television for I can't remember since when. Like, even movies, like, I used
Yeah.
to watch a lot of Bollywood movies at one point.
Oh yeah.
And then, like, I kind of started noticing the messaging, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, this isn't for me. And like, as you kind of ascend, that's definitely a thing. And I think you said a very, it was very short and sweet. It's like, be open. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's just it. Like, as long as you're open to things and kind of realize, and I think I'm really going to try to practice that methodology you just mentioned. Seeing things for like 30 minutes and just
Mm-hmm.
pretending, you know
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful. I'm just definitely going to try that out for sure. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah, so what's next for you? Like, okay, you mentioned you are going to be practicing ascension. Like, what does that mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it a philosophy, or what is it exactly? Yeah.
No, actually, I'm now at the point in my life that I was kind of I have my periods where I'm very inspired also to share, and
Right.
where I'm not so inspired. Like I have been doing the cosmic sexuality and I wanted to teach, but I feel like I have some more working on myself to do before I
Mm.
take that route. I'm also just thinking of, I have my day job, it costs a lot of time. So I am actually now try really to work on myself. So my own shadow work, a lot of shadow work, a lot of like monk mode, being alone at home,
Right,
which is
right,
fine,
right, right,
because I feel like I need to just break through some shadow parts of myself, and then I want to really see what do I want to do with this. For now, I'm just sharing my content as it comes up, and I'm just trying to learn a lot. And
right, right, right,
I used to believe like I want to start something. I think I was also thinking about coaching,
right.
but I feel like I'm in a surrender state. So I'm like, it will come to me when the right path will, be enlightened when it's ready. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah. So I'll definitely leave your links in the description as well for those people who want to really
Thank
check
you.
out your work and everything. So yeah, I really enjoyed this podcast with you. I think it was really fun. Definitely going to be having
Yes.
another episode for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any final messages or any closing remarks for the audience or just for me or anything? Yeah.
No, I'm just so glad to be able to be part of this. And I think it's really nice, you and I sharing content. And you have so much wisdom for your age. And it's just so beautiful to combine it with the things I've learned. And yeah, I hope everyone who needs to pick it up will pick it up. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. No, thank you so much. I think it was a wealth of knowledge. There were a lot of things that I wasn't aware of. And again, like I'm gonna be, putting a lot of things that we discussed into practice today. And yeah, so thank you once again for joining. Thank you for your time. So guys, we've come to the end of the podcast. If this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on your bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. Guys, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.